Welcome. Today we're going to be doing apple tart Eleanor, which is literally a very classic French apple pie, apple galette that we make with an almond cream, which we're going to show you how to do, and served with a warm caramel sauce, and in this case, a swirl of vanilla whipped cream. You can serve it at home if you will, and it's just as good with the best vanilla ice cream you can have. We start the almond cream by creaming together 1 stick of butter and 2/3 of a cup of sugar, which we have already in. We're going to get that nice and creamy. And then we add almond powder, almond flour. You can make your own. It's just simply a matter of taking almonds and freezing them and processing them in your Roku until they get to be almost a flour consistency. You will have to do that in 2 steps because if you do it all the way through, you'll wind up with almond butter rather than almond flour. So freeze it, get it halfway, put it back in the freezer to take the heat out of it, and then reprocess. Now, see the consistency? Very nice. And in that goes. And that's all nicely creamed. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of dark rum. And then we're going to add 2 eggs, 1 egg at a time. The butter you're going to be using must be unsalted butter, so make sure you're being aware of that, unsalted butter. Almond cream that we're making, very quintessentially typical ingredient in all French fruit tarts. Okay, and there we are. We're done with the almond cream. Let's move over and construct our apple tarts. Notice this is a rather small scoop. So I'm going to take that almond cream that we just made and make sure it's quite level because you don't want to overdo it. And we're putting a scoop of the almond cream in the middle of each one of these puff pastry rounds. Now, what I did to make these puff pastry rounds is simply I bought a sheet of puff pastry, which is in the frozen food section of your grocery store, and then I thawed it overnight, unwrapped it, and then just used a rather large cutter. But remember, whenever you're using puff pastry, to cut straight down. Do not turn your cutter at all. Straight down to cut. Reason being is if you go and you do this, what you're going to do is seal the top and the bottom edges together. And what that will do is to distort your whole puff pastry. So now, taking this, we have our cut apples. Now all I need to do is cut each apple, peeled and cored, into halves. This apple tart Eleanor is so-called Eleanor because we're putting the apples down in the shape of a flower so that when it bakes, it will look exactly like a rose, so to speak. And once I get to this point, now I'm going to cut a little bit, and again cut a little bit, and one more time. And see how we have almost like a rose? And when that cooks, the apples will actually collapse, fall back on each other, and we'll have a one-dimensional tart, which will look very floral in appearance. Okay, and here we have the finished apple tart Eleanor's, finished all except we're going to brush them now with melted butter, again unsalted. And this will add a little bit of richness, but also a fond for the cinnamon sugar. Notice how it's forming a cone. It's kind of going up almost in a triangular way. Don't go straight up when you're assembling. You want to put the apples in a little bit further in every time. And notice you can see 1/4 inch of puff pastry all the way around the base of the apples. So we're brushing this now with that lovely melted butter. And then we're going to take some cinnamon sugar, buy the best cinnamon you can. And it's about 1-to-1 ratio for me, because I like a little bit zesty apple tart here. And notice we're being a little bit generous. And now these are going right into a 375-degree oven. And now, after about 20 minutes of baking at 375 degrees, we have our tarts. Our beautiful apple tart Eleanors. So called again because it looks, see the floral pattern?